العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم يسر لنا اليسرى وجنبنا العسرى واجمع لنا بين خيري الدنيا والأخرى. Brothers and sisters in Islam, rahimani wa rahmakumullah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for gathering us in this place, for moving our hearts to come together to seek some knowledge, some obligatory knowledge regarding the Salah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us steadfast and always grant us sincerity. Ameen. So briefly, last time, yesterday, we talked about briefly the Shahadatain. We talked about La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, and we explained the meaning, and that it is as the author mentioned, he says, the first matter that is obligatory upon every Muslim to believe in. So now the author, rahimahullah, he goes on page number 6. He says, ثم يجب عليه أن يتعلم شروط الصلاة وأركانها ومبطلاتها. He says after that, meaning after knowing the meaning of La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, it is obligatory upon a Muslim to learn the conditions, pillars and nullifiers of Salah. Okay, so here the author mentions three things: the conditions of Salah, the pillars of Salah, and the nullifiers of Salah. Okay, so we know the conditions, we have to fulfill them; the pillars, we have to carry them out; and the nullifiers, we have to avoid them. However, there is a question for everyone, inshallah. What is the difference between the conditions of Salah and the pillars of Salah? Bismillah, who knows? Bismillah. Let's turn on the engines, let's go. What's the difference between condition and a pillar?
Conditions are like things that you must do before you finish Salah. Pillars are the things you must follow while you're praying.
Inshallah, very excellent. So that's a brief explanation of one of the main differences between conditions and pillars of Salah. So condition is something that you must fulfill before the Salah, before you start the Salah, and it must be fulfilled throughout the entire Salah until you finish the Salah. So for example, if someone breaks their wudu in the middle of the Salah is invalid. Okay. However, a pillar like ruku', right, prostrating, or sujood, bowing down, ruku', prostrating, bowing down, and sujood, prostrating, this must be fulfilled within the Salah, and it's not, the entire Salah. It's basically a part of the Salah. So a pillar is something that is a part of the Salah. That's the main differences. That's important, inshallah, to understand. So here the author, he starts by saying there are 12 conditions for Salah. So first we talk about the conditions of Salah, that which must be fulfilled before we enter the Salah itself. Okay. First, he mentions the first condition of Salah. He says to be pure from najis. Okay. The first condition is to be pure from any, or free from any najis. But before we move on, there's something that the author, rahimahullah, did not mention that we'll quickly mention, inshallah. So we have the conditions of Salah. Now, conditions are divided into two. We have two types of conditions, okay? The conditions that the author mentioned here are the conditions for validity. When the Salah, how can the Salah be valid? Okay, the conditions that we need so the Salah can be valid. And the author, he says here there are 12. Okay? Now, another type of condition is the conditions that when they are fulfilled, they are found in a human being, they must perform the 5 daily prayers. It is wajib upon them to pray the 5 daily prayers. Okay? So, conditions for obligation. We can say, when the Salah becomes obligatory upon a human being, there are 4 conditions. Okay? Please write them down, memorize them, inshallah. So the first condition is Islam. So a person to be a Muslim, if a person is a Muslim, they must pray the 5 daily prayers. Okay? If a person is a disbeliever, is a kafir, then they are not required to pray 5 daily prayers. In fact, they are required first to accept Islam. Okay? However, they will be punished on the Day of Judgment for leaving the prayers. Second condition is sanity. Okay, for a person to their brain to be working, sanity. They must be awake and they have sanity. So someone who's crazy, obviously, salah is not upon them. Number 3, a person must be baligh, or in simple words, you can say puberty. Someone has reached puberty according to Islam. Therefore, a young child who's, for example, 6 years old, 5 years old, the 5 daily prayers are not mandatory upon them. They will not be punished for leaving the 5 daily prayers. The last condition is this is specifically for women, so pure from hayd and nifas, from menstruation and nifas. Nifas is the blood that comes out after giving birth. Okay, so a woman who's going through menstruation, obviously, it's haram for them to pray, right? It's not obligatory for them to pray. So any human being that we find these 4 conditions in, they must pray the 5 daily prayers. Okay, someone asks, brother, there's someone in the hospital, he's paralyzed, he can't move, but he's still awake, he's still alive, he still has sanity, but he can't move, he can't make wudu. Does he have to pray? Then we look at these conditions, right? He's a Muslim, sanity, baligh, free from pain, nifas. Yes, he must pray. He must pray with his ability. If he can only moves his eyelids, he prays so. If he can't, uses his mind and heart and so on, as we'll mention later on, inshallah. But the point is that we all now understand that whoever fulfill these conditions, they must pray the 5 daily prayers. No matter work, uni, whatever that is, if these are found, a Muslim must pray. Is that understood? Any questions, inshallah? Okay. And obviously these conditions will be mentioned later on, inshallah. So now we move on, inshallah. So the author, he says, there are 12 conditions for salah, okay, meaning the conditions for validity of salah. So number 1 is to be pure or free from najis. Najis means, who knows what najis means? Anyone? Yes? Impurities, mashallah. So najis is impurity. So in order for the prayer to be valid, first a person must be free from najis, okay, or impurity. Okay, we will mention what are the impurities soon, inshallah. Now there are 3 places where a person must check that they are free from impurities. Number 1 is the body. Number 2, clothing. And number 3, the place or area of salah. Okay. So a person must first check their body, under the nails, the hair, everything, part of their body must be free from impurities. Okay. Number 2 is the clothing. Everything that you wear, your shirts, your pants, everything must be free from impurities. And number 3 is the place of salah, or the area of salah. And to explain a bit what do we mean by the place of salah, does it mean the whole row, or the sajada, this mat has to be pure? What we mean by place of salah is the area that your body or clothing comes in contact with. Okay? So if you're doing sujood, for example, you're prostrating, your hands are on the ground, right? Your knees are on the ground, your clothes might get on the ground. So that area that comes in contact with your clothing or body must be pure. So if someone asks, what if someone prostrates, right? They're doing sujood, and under their chest on the ground there's something najis, but it's not coming in contact with their clothes or body. Is their salah valid? So they're prostrating, right under their chest on the ground is something that's najis, but it's not coming in straight contact with their clothes or body. Is the salah valid? Right, we say the salah is valid. Okay, the salah is valid. But if when he prostrates and the clothes go down, right, and it comes in contact with the najis, then we say the salah is invalid. So this is what we mean by place. So that's a bit of detail. What do we mean by place? Okay, it doesn't mean the whole area. Okay. Any questions regarding this? too quick? No. Okay, Bismillah. So, once that's understood, we'll mention now what are the impurities according to the Sharia. Okay, is spit najis or impure? Is that which comes out of the nose impure? That comes out of the ears impure? What are the impurities according to Islam, according to the Sharia? Okay. Now, when mentioning najis or impurities, there are two ways we explain najis. Okay. The scholars, when they mention najis, there's two ways. Number one is by giving a definition, right? A definition. What is najis? The second way of mentioning najis is to count them. Najis is 1, 2, 3, 4 until the end, which is roughly 9 or 10. Okay. And this is the way that the author took. So he says, yeah. So he starts by counting them. He says, number one is wine. Okay. So if you can write this down, it's already in the book. Okay. The first is wine. What do we mean by wine? We mean every intoxicant liquid. So anything that is intoxicant, right? And it is in the form of a liquid, it is najis. Okay? So this is what I mean by wine. Okay? So anything that is intoxicant in the form of a liquid is najis. We must avoid it. If it gets on our clothes or our body, or it's in the area of salah, we must remove it first. Okay? That's pretty straightforward. And then number two, the author mentions we have urine. Okay? And then number three, the author mentions excrement, and then number four we have dung. Okay. So what's the difference between the two? I mean, in Arabic, zgha'it and rawth, as you mentioned here, right? So any feces or dirt that comes out of a human being or animal, whatever animal it is, even if it's a sheep, even if it's a fish, it is considered najis, it is impure. Okay, so if you're thinking about putting your hand into a fish tank, then you have to think twice, right? Make sure you wash your hand afterwards. So this is briefly, so these three, they come out, what do they have in similar? Right, what do they have in similar? Does anyone know? They come out of, right? Yeah, they come out of the sewage, right? They come out of the digestive system, okay? So from here, we have two principles, okay? These are two important principles that we should write down and memorize, inshallah. We say every liquid that comes out from the back, the front or back private part is what? Is najis. Okay, so this is a principle that we need to memorize. Every liquid that comes out of from the back or front private part is najis. So we have urine, we have something else that the scholars mentioned, madhi, which is a clear water that is sticky, that comes out when a person has desire, sexual desire. Also wadi, a type of water that comes out when a person is exhausted, right? They sleep or they lift something heavy and then that comes out. So everything, every liquid that comes out from the back or front private part is najis. Okay? Except many, or semen as they say, except for many. So everything that comes out from the back or front private part is najis except for many, okay, the semen. Right, so this is a principle that we need to remember, inshallah. And then the opposite, we have another principle, okay? Every liquid that comes out from other then the front or back private part is pure. Okay. So everything, any type of liquid, tears, that which comes out of the nose, okay, spit, that is all pure. Obviously not included blood and all that, right? We mean these liquids that come out of the ears, the eyes, the nose, and etc. So all of that is pure. Is there an exception? Except for vomit, okay, that which which comes out of the mouth of a person. And what we mean by vomit is something that a person eats and is already digested, okay. So it'll come out with a different smell, a different look, right? But that which a person eats and then it comes out straight away, that's not vomit, that is najis, okay. Vomit meaning that which is digested and it comes back out, because it's similar to what? It's digested, okay. So this is two key principles when it comes to najis. Has everyone got this written down? Yes, inshallah. We'll move on. All good? Then the author, rahimahullah, he says, number 5 is blood and pus, okay? Number 5 and 6, okay? Number 5 and 6 is blood and pus. So blood, we all know blood, red colored, and pus is white liquid that usually it's from blood originally, but it changed over time and it has a bad smell, okay? So blood and pus are both najis, both impure, okay? However, there is a detail that I believe is important to mention. Someone might say, I popped a pimple, right? I have an injury on my hand or a cut. It started bleeding in the middle of salah, right? So does that mean I have to break my salah, or is my salah still valid? Okay, so here we have detail. We have to draw a diagram here. We have two situations. If it's a person's own blood or another person's blood. Okay, so please write this down. Okay, so this applies for blood and pus both. So if it's a person's own blood, okay, it is forgiven. What does this mean? What does forgiven mean? Meaning that this blood is najis, right? We all know blood is impure. However, if a person prays with the blood on them, okay, obviously here, on the body or clothing, right, on the body or clothing, it is forgiven, meaning the salah is still valid. Okay, so if you popped a pimple, for example, or you got a cut, starts bleeding, it gets on your clothes, the salah is still valid. Either it is a small amount of blood or a big amount of blood. Okay, a big amount of blood or small amount of blood, they are both forgiven. The person's own blood. Okay. Now, what if it's another person's blood? You pray next to someone, right? And then I don't know, like his blood got on you, whatever. What is the ruling? Is the salah still valid or not? So here we say, if it's a small amount, it is forgiven. Same like the first scenario if it's your own blood. However, if it is a large amount, it is not forgiven. Meaning that if a large amount of blood from someone else gets on you, or your clothes or your body, you must break your prayer, go and clean it. Okay. Obviously we mentioned blood on body and clothing. If the blood gets on your place of salah, right, or you have a tissue that has blood on it and you keep it in your pocket, you have to take it out, you have to clean it. Okay, the salah is invalid with that. Any questions so far?
The tissue is your own blood and you put in your pocket.
Yes, but it's not your clothing.
No, if you like, you blow your nose and there's blood coming out.
Okay, then you
And
throw
put
away the
it-
blood.
Yeah, and you know, and put in the pocket the tissue paper and continue blood when you pray.
Yes. If you find out after, that's what you're saying.
No, you know, sometimes you just with hot days, you blow your nose and there's the blood and you put it in the pocket just in case it come up again.
Okay. Yeah, that's the problem. If there's blood on it,
Yeah.
it's najis, you have to throw it. Throw it.
So the secret because you praying it.
Yes, when you pray. Okay.
About blood from like animals, if you drink from them or anything, it gets on your.
Yes,
blood
that's also najis. Yes. Okay, blood of any animal is also najis. Okay.
Is it not under your own blood?
Yes, but we said on body and your body or clothes, because your clothes don't contact with your
Yeah.
body. But other than that,
Yeah.
it's like, for example, you're carrying a baby, and the baby, poops in his thingy. Is your salah still valid if you carry the baby? Because it's not a part of you. Does that make sense? Or your clothing. It's a tissue. It's something that you can get rid of.
Mm.
Okay.
What happens if the blood drops your clothing while you pray?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
That,
matter, yeah.
no problem. Because body or clothing. Okay. Is that understood? Yes, folks.
How would you, what would you categorize as being large?
Okay. Yes, mashallah, good question. So, what is the difference, or how do you categorize this as small amount or large amount? That goes back to the urf, the norm. Okay. Normally, would people consider this a big amount of blood, or is it just a few drops? No problem. Okay, it goes back to the norm.
How about if someone vomits on you like mid prayer, like does
Yes,
that,
mashallah.
if they like if they're praying
Yes. Yeah, the salah, you have to clean it up.
straight away?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mashallah. So I believe this is understood, yeah, inshallah. So that's 5 and 6. So I'll rub this out if everyone written that down. And then number 7, the author, he goes on, he says, vomit. So that we explain vomit briefly, what we mean by vomit. Okay, that's also najis. Okay. So you better clean your mouth after you vomit. You have to clean it, make sure your nose, everything is clean, inshallah. Okay, and then number 8 and 9, pretty straightforward. The author, he says, dogs and pigs. So probably number 8 is very important, especially here, right, where we live. So dogs and pigs are both najis, right? The saliva, the hair, everything about it is najis, okay? That's pretty straightforward, I think. And then the last one, number 10, is, okay, before we move on to number 10, dogs and pigs, and the author says, and any breed from one of them, okay? So if we have a hybrid, right, we have a dog and a sheep, or a pig and a sheep, then that, animal that would come out of them is also najis. It takes the ruling off the najis. These are the scholars, they think of things that might happen, right? And they give the rulings. May Allah have mercy upon them. The last type of najis is corpse, as the author says here, meita. Okay, corpse or meita. Now, when it comes to corpse, we need to have a definition, so we know what is considered a corpse and what is not considered a corpse. Okay, so we can say that corpse is everything or every animal that, let's say, died without being slaughtered Islamically. Okay, so this is the definition of a corpse, right? كل ما زالت حياتها بغير زكاة شرعية. So every animal that died without being slaughtered Islamically. Okay, because there are rulings when can the animal become halal, right? These are discussed by the scholars of Fiqh. Okay, so any animal that died without being slaughtered Islamically. Okay, so if a chicken is a chicken halal to be eaten. from the animals that are permissible to. But if the chicken was smashed to the wall until it died, it wasn't slaughtered, okay, or it was slaughtered by a kafir, by a non-Muslim, it's not going to be halal, right? So it's not slaughtered Islamically, right? It could be slaughtered by a non-Muslim, or it wasn't slaughtered, it was just smashed to the wall, it was crushed or whatever, and it died. Or, for example, it got sick, the animal got sick, then died. Okay. This is considered corpse, and it's considered najis. It's not only haram to eat, but it's also najis. Okay. Any part of it, the author he says here, corpse including its hair, hoof, skin, and bone are najis. So everything about a corpse is najis. The bone, the hair, the horns, the tail, everything about it is najis. Okay. And then the author he says, he gives an exception. Okay, so we have to mention another principle here, inshallah. Okay, so we have to rub this out. So there are two principles that we have to write down and memorize, inshallah. First one is every corpse is najis, okay? Except for three. As the author here, he mentions human, fish, and locusts. Okay, human, fish, and locusts. So first is a human being. So a human being, when they die and they pass away, even if it's a disbeliever, a kafir, the body is pure. The body of a kafir, when he passes away, is pure. It's not najis. Any human being that passes away, their body is pure. Okay, number two is fish. What do we mean by fish? Fish is any animal that only lives underwater. Okay, that's the definition of fish here. Any animal that only lives under the water. Okay. So the corpse of fish is halal and it's not najis. Okay. Number three is locusts. Does everyone know what locust is? Yes. They're similar to yeah. Like what do you call it?
Grasshopper.
Yes, similar to grasshopper. Something like that. That's a locust. Okay. For those who don't know, or they can look it up on Google, inshallah. Picture will come up. So these are three exceptions to the corpse that are najis. And then the author he says that which is slaughtered and permissible to be eaten. Obviously, if an animal that is permissible to be eaten, like a sheep or a cow or a horse, right, is slaughtered properly Islamically, then they're not considered a corpse. Okay, so that exception by the author was just extra. Okay, was just extra. Now we want to look at this principle again. Every corpse is najis except human, fish, locust. Now what about the opposite? Every living animal is what? Is pure. Are there any exceptions? Does anyone know? We just mentioned them a while ago, a few minutes ago. Yes, pigs, dogs and pigs. Okay, except. So we have except these two right here. So every living animal is pure. So if you touch a cat, if you touch maybe a tiger, right, it's pure. Okay, your hand doesn't become najis. Except for these two. Okay, these two animals are special. Okay, so these are two other principles that we need to remember, inshallah. It's very, very basic, right? If we remember these principles, inshallah, it will help us a lot. Is this understood? Yes, any questions?
Ahmed.
Yeah.
What if someone touches a dog? Does he have to wash his hand or?
Okay, yes, so this inshallah ta'ala will come. We'll talk about how does najis move from something that is najis, how does it move to your hand or your clothing, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, that's a very good question. Welcome. Okay, and then one more thing we might add, since we have a few more minutes left. Okay. This is another principle to write down, inshallah. ما بينا من حيث وميتا. So we say anything that is cut off from a living animal has the ruling of its corpse. Right, this is something extra, but we might need this as well, inshallah. So someone might ask, what if I have a cow or a bull and I cut off its horn, right? The bull, died, it's a corpse, it wasn't slaughtered, and I took off its horn. Or I had a cow and I cut off its tail while it was alive, okay? So anything that is cut off from a living animal, okay? So the animal is still alive, but you took off a part of it, or an organ or something like this. What is the ruling of it? Is it najis or is it pure? Okay, so we say here, it has the ruling of its corpse. Okay, so what is the ruling of a corpse of a human being? A dead human being. Is it najis or pure? The body of a human being.
Najis?
Najis?
Yeah.
A human being.
Pure. I mean.
Pure, yeah? Inshallah, when we all die, inshallah, we'll be pure. So a human being, when they die, their body, their physical body, even a kafir, is pure. Okay, it's not najis. So that means, if you cut off your hair, if you cut off your nail, is it pure najis? The hair that you cut off, or the nail that you cut off, is it pure najis?
Najis?
Why?
Huh?
Why is it najis?
Because it isn't a human.
Mm-hmm. But it's from?
It's from a human.
Exactly. So it's
Najis. Pure.
pure, right? Because the ruling of a corpse of a human being is
Pure.
pure. Likewise, the opposite. If you have, for example, let's give an example. The horn, we gave the horn. If you have a bull, it's still alive, you cut off its horn.
Yeah.
What is the ruling of this horn? Is it pure or najis?
It's pure.
Why?
Because it's from the human being.
No, it's from a bull. We're talking about a bull.
Oh, bull.
Yeah.
Then it's najis.
Yes, because the corpse of a bull
I
is
thought it was a human.
najis, yes. MashaAllah. Okay, so this is basic, ruling on this as well. Okay, obviously the scholars make an exception, like feathers, like the wool of a sheep, as this is mentioned in the Quran. Okay. I think that's enough for today, inshallah. It's a lot of information, inshallah. So hopefully we can revise this, inshallah, throughout these 5 days until next week. We revise, read again, inshallah. If there's any questions, as in the Telegram group, there's a link. You can, just throw in your question, and we'll answer it, inshallah ta'ala, to the best of our ability. Any questions before we finish off? Nothing, everything clear, inshallah.
If blood is impure while it leaves on us, does it mean like this?
No, it's inside us. If it comes out, then
Oh, then it's impure.
yeah,
Ah,
because otherwise, everything inside us is,
it's pure.
yeah, you have dirt and everything inside. So when it comes out, then it has the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Jazakallah. Nice question. Anyone else? Okay. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll finish here for today. And we'll continue on Tuesday, inshallah ta'ala. We have the topic of, so now we know what's najis. We're going to talk about how to remove that najis so we can stand for prayer, inshallah ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us, to make this beneficial knowledge, to make this knowledge an argument for us, not against us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant swift victory and aid to our brothers and sisters, especially those in Palestine. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير.